He called on the phone and he said, "I'm going skiing. I'll see you when I see you." We were sitting at the supper table when the door burst open. He came in, threw his hat and gloves on the island in the center of the kitchen and said, "It's better than sex."
That's A.J. Porschet, live on stage at the Howell Grand Slam at Pickens Hall in Heuvelton in 2017. And on today's episode, it's all uphill from here. From NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing, this is The Howl. I'm Ethan Shanty. I had a conversation with a friend recently who said, "I really want to try painting, but I actually don't want to do it because I don't think I'll immediately be good at it." And all I could think was, man, do you think that I was immediately good at the things that I like? Writing poetry, playing guitar? No, it took a long time. And if I still had it, I'd play for you this disastrous performance by one of my high school bands. It was me on lead guitar, Sam on drums, John on bass, and Drew on rhythm guitar and vocals. We called ourselves The Fall Effect, which we thought was a really deep name when we were 16. We were playing at the St. Mary's Church Summer Fair in Potsdam with a handful of original songs and a boatload of Blink-182 and Puddle of Mud covers. And halfway through our set, it was clear that we were not winning over this audience, like at all. It was like we were holding them hostage. No matter how well we could pull off a Green Day imitation, these people were not into it. The longer we played, the more they hated our guts. And thinking that maybe modern day pop punk wasn't their thing, our singer Drew decided that they were more of a classic rock crowd. So he turned to the mic and he shouted, "Who wants to hear some Nirvana?" And there were crickets. Actually worse than crickets. Just nothing. I'd never known before what it was like to hear a pin drop, but there we were. To this day, I can remember this woman decked out all in denim sitting in the very front row, literally scowling at us. You'd have thought that we spit in her purse or something. I don't think anyone had ever looked at me with that much actual hate in their eyes before. But, as they say, the show must go on. We did plod through that Nirvana song and then a few more originals to close out our set, and I was getting more and more embarrassed by the moment, my face turning as red as my Limp Bizkit shirt. And as we finished our last song, we were rewarded with a smattering of really pathetic, unenthusiastic applause. I felt the lowest I'd ever felt in my life. I mean, our performance was so bad and the reception so chilly that our drummer Sam actually quit the band afterward. And at the time, I couldn't blame him. We sucked. No two ways about it. It certainly seemed like the end of the world. We were 16 after all. But a month later, we got back together and we played some more shows and we played some more. We got better at keeping the rhythm with one another and tuning our guitars between songs. Our vocal harmonies improved. We got a little less bad. And before you know it, we were making music that we actually liked, that other people enjoyed listening to even. I never went too long without a band, always trying out some different genre with a rotating cast of characters, and learning a little bit more each time. We traveled further away from home to reach new people. We figured out the business side of things, as anti-punk as that might sound. And after who knows how many shows and how many strange towns and how many miles driven, I finally got signed to a record label in my 20s. But I still had more work to do. Because when I was young, I thought that there was a finish line for art. There isn't. It's a lifelong endeavor. You just gotta keep going. And if you do that, you're bound to suck a little bit less. So now, more than 20 years after I started playing guitar for the first time, that's what I try to tell young people. It's okay to be bad. If you start making music or whatever you're into, the most important thing is to have fun. Keep trying, even if nobody claps at all. Today's story is not about music at all, but it is about getting back up on that horse and learning to do something that you love. A.J. Porschet told us this story live on stage back in 2017. Here she is.
In order to fully appreciate my story, you have to imagine me 35 years younger and a lot thinner. My story begins in the holidays, the Christmas, Thanksgiving era of 1987. We had just finished Thanksgiving dinner and the tryptophan turkey malaise was taking over when my husband said, "I think we should buy cross-country skis for the family for Christmas." I was so tired. If we're going to buy skis, I want downhill. I want gravity to do most of the work. But he was undaunted, and so we bought cross-country skis for the family for Christmas. We brought them home, wrapped them up, hid them away, and then eagerly anticipated Christmas morning. It arrived. The kids came racing down the stairs to the living room, recognized immediately, even though they were wrapped, that they were skis, and seemed really, really excited until they looked out the French doors in the living room, and Jonathan said, "But where's the snow?" It had been a very cold winter, and we'd had flurries, but nothing had accumulated. And so here we had this wonderful ski package for all of us, and we couldn't use them. My husband at the time was in the antiques restoration business, and he had a couple of deliveries to make the next day, and while he was out, he was listening to the radio. And he heard an ad for Bristol Mountain Ski Resort. Now remember, this is 1987. You could have a lesson, rent skis, and a 4-hour pass for $25. He called on the phone and he said, "I'm going skiing. I'll see you when I see you." We were sitting at the supper table when the door burst open. He came in, threw his hat and gloves on the island in the center of the kitchen and said, "It's better than sex." Our 7-year-old went, "Ew, Daddy." Our 14-year-old bowed his head toward his plate and sat there with his nose 4 inches from the potatoes and said nothing for the rest of the night. Doug backtracked and tried to explain what a great time he'd had, and finally convinced us, because in the next couple of days we were off to Bristol to take those $25 ski lesson rentals and passes. We took the lesson, and it took the kids about 15 seconds to feel comfortable on the hill, and they and Doug disappeared, and I stayed behind on the beginner's hill, wondering what had ever possessed me when I said I wanted downhill skis. I did improve slowly but surely. I took 2 or 3 more lessons. The instructors kept telling me that there were other ways to slow down and turn besides snow plowing. And I said, "Well, figure it out and help me get so that I can do it, because my inner thighs are killing me." I finally decided to go down Infinity, which was a trail with a mild grade and 1 curve. I called it a hairpin. My kids mocked me, but a hairpin is one that turns back on itself, and this one did. I decided I would go down Infinity, not snow plowing once. And I did, all the way around the curve, where I saw about 100 feet ahead of me 14 or 15 little 4- and 5-year-old kids who had stopped to have a chat in the middle of the trail. Now, condense this next process into about a nanosecond. I am the skee ball, I am the bowling ball, they are the pins, and we're going to have a strike any second. I threw myself in the most colossal snowplow that has ever been performed on any ski trail in any place in the world. When I woke up, I heard this little voice say, lady, are you dead? Lady. When I opened my eyes, I scared him so badly he fell on my chest, which compounded the problem that my left ski was vertical and my knee was twisted grotesquely because my binding didn't release. So much for parallel skiing and snowplows and the whole shot, I thought to myself. But the little kid said, "Can we help you? Can we help you?" There wasn't an adult in sight, and so I said with great trepidation, "Can you release my bindings?" It took 3 of them, after many tugs, jerks, and pulls, but finally the binding was released. I assured them I was okay and shooed them down the hill. I gathered my skis, got up on my knees, crawled to the edge of the trail, pulled myself up by the tree branches, ascertained that nothing was broken, and made my way gingerly to the bottom of the hill. I didn't give up. I did go back. I went back for several years. I still liked Infinity best, but I got better, and my kids always said to me, "Mom, you're a much better skier than you think you are." And I would listen to that. And then I would get on the lift and go to Comet and North Star and wish I'd never been born. One trail I promised myself I would never attempt was Upper Rocket. When you stood at the ski lodge and looked up to the top of Upper Rocket, you had to stand like this. It was worse at the top. They convinced me to get on the lift. I rode to the top, got off the lift, and looked down and said, there are only two ways to get down this hill. One is to get back on the lift and ride down, which my pride wouldn't let me do, and the other was to ski down. I was scared spitless, and I said spitless. But I began my descent. I found out that there were three ways to get down Upper Rocket. The third way was in a basket suspended between two members of the ski patrol who were shaking their heads and rolling their eyes and saying, "Can you believe it? I wonder if she'll ever learn." I still didn't give up, but I never did go up Upper Rocket again. We had other skiing excitements, and one of them was taking a bus all the way to Utah to ski while our son was a freshman in college at Brigham Young University. We must have stopped at 11,000 towns between New York and Salt Lake City, and at one of those stops, one of the persons who got on the bus and sat down by my husband was in for a real treat because Doug tried to engage him in conversation, and he said, "Where are you from?" And he said, "I'm on Christmas parole. They let me out, and I have to be back in 4 days." That was the end of that conversation. You know, skiing was really good for our family. Our kids who had been at loggerheads could now, one was 7, one was 14, they could now ski together because she was as good as he was. We had a wonderful time together. It was exhilarating, exciting, extraordinary, but I must confess, as spectacular as it was, skiing never was or never will be better than sex.
Thanks to AJ Porschet for her story, and thanks to you for joining us. There's just one episode of The Howl left. Next week, we'll hear a story from Rose Revezzi.
I remember driving home saying, this time it's going to be different. I'm going to look past the house, I'm going to be happy with my mother, and I'm going to let it go. And I'd pull up to the house, and all that accumulated bitterness would just weigh down on me.
To support this show and to find out more about the Adirondack Center for Writing, visit ncpr.org/howl. The show is written, produced, and edited by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. David Summerstein is the script supervisor. Caitlin Kelly handles our social media. Doyle Dean is our production manager. And Bill Hanel is our director of digital tomfoolery. Our theme music is by the one and only famous letter writer of Plattsburgh. You can check them out at our website. Oh, and hey, by the way, you can join NCPR and the Adirondack Center for Writing for the Howl Grand Slam coming up January 25th, 2025 at the Harrietstown Town Hall in Saranac Lake. You'll hear some of the North Country's best storytellers competing head-to-head for one night only, and you'll even hear a couple of stories by people who were on this season. Get a link to tickets now at ncpr.org/howl. I'll see you next week. For North Country Public Radio, I'm Ethan Shanty. This is NCPR.